I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, me Militia? I'm Mean Joe Grizzly, and when I'm not watching a movie called Kraven the Hunter that's about a hunter who also has a father who's a hunter who will not stop calling himself a hunter, I am at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comics, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the latest and hopefully final installment of Sony's Spider-Man universe that doesn't have Spider-Man in it. But before we get started, if you like this video, like it. And if you like it enough, please go over to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell button so you never miss an episode. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get channel updates, movie news, and all other forms of badassery. So, does Sony's Spider-Man spinoff universe go out with a bang? Or does it finally just smolder out so that we never have to see it again? Let's find out. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. So Kraven the Hunter is about how Kraven became the hunter, how he is the hunter, and how he does absolutely nothing in his fucking movie. Yeah, I know, I'm being very down already, but Sony, you're not really giving me a choice. So just to give a few positives, and I mean a small morsel of positives, Aaron Taylor Johnson does a pretty good job with what he is given. Unlike most of the actors in this Sony spinoff universe, he doesn't just phone it in. Is his dialogue atrocious? Absolutely. Is his performance bad? No, I don't think his performance is bad. I think his performance is affected by the byproduct of the horribly written script and the horrible dialogue that was written for him. Unlike Dakota Johnson in Madam Web, where she just phones it in like a fucking robot.
I'm not really sure at this point I have a choice.
Aaron Taylor Johnson at least tries to give us something. I also want to say Russell Crowe. He does his job well too. He really personifies what Kraven the Hunter is actually supposed to be. And it's kind of jarring to see him be more like Kraven than Aaron Taylor Johnson. But once again, that's part of the bad dialogue that was written for him and how they just don't understand the character. So they couldn't even do one thing right by giving him the persona that his father has. Also, there's some solid action scenes with some decent gore, nothing special. And unfortunately, that's where all the positives end. Starting out with the long list of negatives. This movie makes absolutely no fucking sense. And when I mean it makes no fucking sense, it makes no sense whatsoever. I cannot tell you what the goal of the writer was, the goal of the story. I really can't tell you the motivations of Kraven other than he just don't want to be like his father. I can't tell you much about this movie. I don't even know who the actual villain in this movie was. This movie was written horribly. And more importantly, I don't know what the point of this movie was. Does it set stuff up? Yeah, it sets stuff up, but I don't really know what it's setting up. It's one of those things where, even as a Spider-Man fan, where I most of the time keep an open mind and I'm willing to go into these movies, you know, with a clear mind and try not to be so critical of them. They've just every single time they have just, you know, beat me in the ground with incompetence that I have no expectations for these movies anymore. And I didn't have any going in for this one. I only went to go see this movie because I'm trying to help out y'all. And I'm trying to keep people from wasting their money. And this is definitely one movie that you shouldn't waste your money on. One of the biggest problems with why this movie doesn't work and why it doesn't make any sense is because, just like with all the other ones, there's no connection to Spider-Man. And when I say no connection, there's no connection. They try to make you think there's a connection, but there's not a connection. Even Madam Web had somewhat of a connection. Not very much, but somewhat. But this one, This one, the only connection that they draw to Spider-Man is a couple of his other villains and characters from that universe. That's it. It doesn't give you anything else. And just like with the Venom movies, and just like with Madam Web and Morbius and all these movies, they don't work without Spider-Man. It just doesn't work. It's not the same thing like with Joker, for example. And I'm talking about the first Joker, not the second Joker. But it's just like with Joker. That character is compelling enough that you can give us a universe with just him. I don't think many other like comic book villains can stand alone like that. I don't think it worked with Venom. I think that was one of the biggest glaring problems with Venom, is that he cannot stand alone without Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is such an integral part of that character. But even more so with Kraven. And Kraven doesn't work as an anti-hero. He doesn't work as an anti-hero at all. And really, him being an anti-hero in the movie isn't clearly defined. It's one of those things where he's got a code, but he's still out here viciously killing people. Now, is he killing, like, innocent bystanders? Absolutely not. But it just doesn't make sense. Pretty much in conclusion with that is, it does not matter, Sony, how many Easter eggs you put in these damn movies. It's not going to help tie it to the Spider-Man universe. Name dropping characters that casual moviegoers don't know isn't going to fucking help you. As I said before, the dialogue is absolutely atrocious. And when I say it's atrocious, it's repetitive, and it's one of those movies where I think AI wrote it. Or really, honestly, no, I don't think AI wrote it. I think the writing is just that bad. For instance, the one glaring problem, and I made fun of it in my intro, is Kraven the Hunter cannot talk about being Kraven the Hunter without saying, "I'm a hunter."
Hunting people down is sort of my thing.
What you do for work?
I hunt people.
Я охотник.
Охотник. Every sentence that he ends with, "Well, I'm a hunter. I'm the greatest hunter that ever lived. I'm a hunter. We know you're a fucking hunter." You don't have to keep saying it. It's like to the point where when it starts happening, you cannot unhear it. Like, you expect it after every sentence he makes. Then it's that repetitive and that bad. There's so many more examples, but that is the glaring example of what I'm talking about when I mean incompetent dialogue. The writing is illogical and it's atrocious. And just like when I was saying before with all the Easter eggs, let's leave the Spider-Man lore out of this, and let's just act like this is just a standalone movie. If Kraven is the greatest hunter there ever lived, and once you get on his list, you can't get off his list, and and all this, he's the greatest of this or whatever. There's literally a point in this movie, and it's very early on, that he cannot figure out who he needs to go after next. So he seeks out the help of a lawyer to help him. Why do you need a lawyer to help you? If you're the greatest of all time, why the hell would a lawyer have the information that you need to find some international criminal? Makes no sense whatsoever. It's just bad writing. It's bad writing. You got other things like the fact that when you add back in the Spider-Man lore, the fact that they completely changed his origin to the point where it's like him and his brother are in a prep school in New York, and their father comes and picks him up, and he's got the full Russian accent, and they have these regular old American accent. Well, I take that back. When they're young, they have regular American accents, and then when they get older, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character has an American accent, and his younger brother, who is not too much younger than him, has this weird British / European accent, and it makes zero fucking sense whatsoever. Just like most of this movie. The structure and the editing. So it's very rare that you see a movie that is so incompetently edited and so incompetently shot that you can say that it's one of the big reasons why the movie doesn't make any sense. The transition between scenes does not make sense. You have moments where Kraven is in one country and he is completely decimating this group of people, and then the very next scene, he's in a whole other country doing something else completely different. And you're like, how did we get here? There was nothing to transition from scene to scene. We don't see him get on an airplane, or you know how if they're moving real quick, they'll have at the bottom like the name of the country they're in or the area they're in. They don't give any indication of that. He'll be in the middle of killing a bunch of bad guys, and then it'll cut to a scene with a character that is irrelevant to the current situation. Like, and this is an example for another point I want to get to, but it's one of the glaring examples of bad editing and scene formation and all that. There's a scene where he is off doing whatever and fighting other bad guys, and then it cuts to the guy who plays Rhino. The villain Rhino is literally staring out the window, and he just starts making this weird, awkward, laughing noise that makes it's cringy, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's like there's no like following into that why he did it. It's just him sitting at the window going it makes no sense whatsoever. It's so bad. It's so bad. So let's go on into Rhino. So they took his origin and they played on a little bit. They switched around a couple of things, and that's not the problem. The problem is they made the character, number one, they made him, I'm going to say they made him too smart, but they didn't really make him that smart. But because Rhino's a brute. He's not smart at all. He's just this big bumbling brute that's really super strong, that got all of his powers from enhancements from a scientist. In this movie, they make Rhino a human Rhino hybrid. It's like they don't understand that we don't like stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty bad. Even though I do think that the way that they weave in some of Spider-Man's lore into that, a couple of the Easter eggs, I think they did a decent job of doing that. It's lost on people who don't know who those characters are. So once again, they failed with that too. And the CGI, when he goes full-blown Rhino, looks like absolute ass. It looks so bad. And you can tell they were pickup shots that they shot to add in this whole final battle between Kraven and Rhino, which I don't even know why they were fighting. I don't understand what was the purpose of them fighting. What did Rhino have to gain by fighting and killing Kraven? I don't know. The only thing that I can think of is, and it's the motivations for him as a villain makes no sense, is he was weak and he had some kind of condition. So before he got all this stuff done to him to become the Rhino, Kraven's father didn't respect him and thought he was weak. So because his motivations are, your father thinks I'm a little bitch and I'm weak, so I'm gonna do all this stuff, kidnap your brother and all this stuff to show you that I'm not no bitch. 30 years later, it makes no sense whatsoever. Oh my God, it's bad. And more importantly, with all this, it's just the complete lack of insight and disrespect to the source material. I always feel like every time we get to these bad comic book movies, I feel like I'm a broken record, and one of my biggest complaints is the source material and why they disrespect it or they bastardize it or whatever reason I have for talking about this in almost every single one. And Kraven is no different. Again, this universe, it didn't work for one of the reasons that they disconnected it from Spider-Man. So you automatically take at least a third of these characters, like, woven in DNA to their whole reason for being a character. You snatch that away automatically. So now you got to figure out a way to make the character work without that connection to that. And they have failed repeatedly. The only success they've ever had was with Venom, and I don't feel like it was that successful. It may, if I had to throw it in a percentage standpoint, it's 50-50. It doesn't really work without Spider-Man. More importantly, I said this earlier, Russell Crowe, his character of Kraven's father, he embodies the character of Kraven more than what Aaron Taylor Johnson was doing. And not because of physique or anything like that, or costume or anything like that. It's because of the persona. Kraven has this persona. He's not just some vigilante, assassin. Kraven's not an assassin. Kraven is legitimately a hunter. And I know that Aaron Taylor Johnson told y'all that every 5 minutes in the movie, but legit, he is a guy who lives by survival of the fittest. He lives for the hunt. He lives to always escalate his prey. And that was one of the reasons why he came into contact with Spider-Man, because he was going to be the ultimate hunt. He was going to be the ultimate obstacle and the insurmountable being that he could hunt. And I don't feel like Aaron Taylor Johnson's character embodied that whatsoever, because they were too busy trying to make him an anti-hero. On top of all that, like I was going back to Russell Crowe, he embodies the persona perfectly, to the point that he would have been a great Kraven the Hunter back when Tobey Maguire was playing Spider-Man. I would have loved to have seen that. They do things throughout the movie, like they give him this outfit at the end that looks like the one from the comics. I thought that was awesome. There's even a scene, and a lot of people don't know this, that don't read the comics, but the Chameleon is in this movie, or a bastardized version of the Chameleon's in this movie. And that's Kraven's half-brother in the comics. There is a scene at the end that is kind of cool, but mostly ridiculous, when the Chameleon is kind of revealed. Because there's a scene where he transforms his face, and he looks just like Aaron Taylor Johnson, but like 2 foot shorter. And it looks goofy as fuck. But then it transforms into a comic accurate version of the Chameleon's face, and I thought that was badass. So they throw little bits of stuff from the costumes to that one scene, to the ferocity that Aaron Taylor Johnson uses when he's actually killing villains and stuff. But all in all, they just failed to capture that character. One of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever written is Kraven's Last Hunt. And that's something I would love to see adapted to the screen. Unfortunately, now it's never going to happen. Not in my lifetime, I don't believe, unless somebody actually takes the character serious and actually brings that character back. I just don't see it working. I don't see Morbius or Kraven or Madam Web ever showing up in a movie ever again. Not the versions that we get in this universe, but those characters, period. Because now the audience, the moviegoer audience, sees them as tainted characters. And no one wants to see that shit. So unfortunately, here again, I'm here having to shit all over this movie in this Sony universe, and hopefully this is the last time. Thank God they announced that this universe is dead. They are just cutting their ties and they're letting this universe go. And honestly, I commend them for finally throwing in the towel. They should have threw it in before they released Madam Web. They should have threw it in when they released Morbius. And I haven't seen Venom the Last Dance. That was one of those movies that I just didn't get a chance to go to theaters and see. And I don't know if I'll ever see it, because I don't want to be disappointed with how they represent Null, the symbiote god, one of the coolest villains Marvel has done in the last 30 years. I don't want to see Sony fuck that up. So I'm glad this universe is dead. It deserved the snap more than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Thanos, take your ass over there and snap that universe out of existence so we never have to see it again. And it's over. It's finally over. So with all that being said, Kraven the Hunter gets a 1.5 out of 5, and it is absolutely fucking not Grizzly grade guaranteed. Thank God the Sony universe is dead. Let's move on. Here's to the future. Well, that does it for another episode. If you like this video, like it. If you liked it enough, please go and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get channel updates, movie news, and other forms of badassery. Stay tuned for a couple other things that's coming out before the year ends up, particularly that review of Nosferatu that I'm going to try to get out before the new year. And also, my top 10 and my top worst are coming out at the beginning of the year, so stay tuned for that. Maybe Nosferatu will make it into the top 10 best, and I know damn well Kraven's making it into the top 10 worst. So stay tuned for all that. So if you want to, click right here and watch my review of Werewolves and Y2K. And if you're interested, click right here and listen to my other episodes of Grizzly Grade Reviews. And until next time, remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.